Vanessa Carter sat in her Honda Civic outside the lawyer's office, mascara running down her brown cheeks in rivers she didn't bother to wipe away anymore. The divorce papers sat in the passenger seat.
Signed.
Final. Over. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She could still taste the bitterness of the coffee she'd forced down that morning, cold and acidic, sitting heavy in her empty stomach because she'd been too anxious to eat breakfast. Through the rain-streaked windshield, she watched Ethan walk away. Confident stride. Expensive suit that probably cost more than her rent. Not even a backward glance. His last words still echoed in her head, sharp as broken glass. "You'll never make it without me, Vanessa. You're not built for the real world." She'd looked up at him with swollen eyes and asked the question she already knew the answer to. "Do you even believe in me?" He'd checked his watch, that damn Rolex she'd helped him pick out for his promotion, and shrugged like her pain was an inconvenience. "I believe in reality. And the reality is, you need me more than I need you." She'd pulled off that ring 2 hours later, sitting alone in her new apartment that smelled like fresh paint and broken promises. Held it in her palm, felt its weight, and made herself a promise through the tears. One day, he'll see what he threw away. And it'll be too late. That was 5 years ago. 5 years of ramen noodles at midnight because it was all she could afford. 5 years of pitching her business idea to 47 investors who looked at her like she was delusional. 5 years of waking up at 4 a.m. in cold sweats, terrified she'd made a mistake leaving her stable job. 5 years of proving to herself, and to the world, that she was more than the woman Ethan Caldwell had discarded.
And now?
Now she was CEO of a multi-million-dollar tech company. And Ethan had absolutely no idea. If you've ever been told you're not enough by someone who was supposed to love you, if you've ever had to build yourself back up from nothing while the person who broke you moved on like you never mattered, then you know the kind of fire that builds inside. The kind that either destroys you or forges you into something unbreakable. This is Vanessa's story. But more than that, it's about what happens when the person who shattered your confidence walks back into your life and doesn't even recognize the empire you built from the pieces. And if that touches something in you, if you've ever had to prove your worth to yourself when no one else believed, I think you'll want to see how this unfolds. This is part of my She Rose series, where I share stories every week about women who refuse to stay broken. If you're new here, consider subscribing. Not because I'm asking for it, but because I have a feeling these stories will remind you of your own strength. And that's worth holding on to. Now, let's get back to Vanessa. Because yesterday morning, something happened that would bring her face to face with the man who once made her feel invisible. And he was about to walk into her building. Ethan Caldwell pulled up to the sleek glass tower in downtown Houston, the valet already rushing to open his Mercedes door. Carter Innovations. He'd heard the name. Some tech startup making noise in AI logistics. His consulting firm was pitching for a contract, $500,000 if he played his cards right. Easy money from a company that probably didn't know what they were doing. The leather of his briefcase was smooth and expensive under his palm as he walked through the revolving doors like he owned the place. The lobby smelled like money, that clean, corporate scent of success and air conditioning. Marble floors. Abstract art that probably cost more than his car. Ethan Caldwell. 10 a.m. with your executive team. The receptionist smiled with practiced warmth. Of course, Mr. Caldwell. 10th floor. Someone will meet you there. He stepped into the elevator, already mentally spending his commission. This was going to be a good day. The elevator chimed. Ethan stepped into a workspace that hummed with purposeful energy. Employees collaborated in glass-walled conference rooms. The quiet buzz of innovation. Impressive, he admitted silently. For a startup. He scanned the floor for whoever was supposed to meet him. And then he saw her. A woman with her back turned, natural curls catching the light, navy blazer perfectly tailored. She stood near a conference room, talking to a young man with a tablet, her hand gesturing at something on the screen with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Even from behind, something about her posture was familiar. She turned, and Ethan's world stopped. Vanessa, his ex-wife. Here. What in God's name was she doing here? She looked different.
Polished.
Professional in a way that seemed almost foreign from the woman he remembered. But before he could process it, she looked up, and their eyes met. For a split second, something flickered across her face.
Shock.
Recognition. Then it was gone, replaced by a carefully neutral expression. She said something to the young man, who nodded and walked away. Then she approached, her heels clicking on the polished floor with measured precision. Ethan's heart was pounding. He could feel it in his throat, taste copper on his tongue.
Ethan.
Her voice was steady, cool as spring water. Vanessa. He forced a smile that felt plastic on his face. I didn't know you worked here. Clearly. The word had edges. Awkward silence stretched between them. His mind raced. Of all the companies in Houston, hell, in Texas, this was where she'd ended up? He recovered quickly, falling back into old comfortable patterns of condescension. So, what do you do here exactly? Administrative work? Project coordination? He glanced around, his tone just dismissive enough to sting. Let me guess, human resources? Something like that, she said quietly. Ethan relaxed, his world righting itself. Support staff. Middle management, at best. That made sense. That fit the Vanessa he remembered, capable enough, but nothing special. Well, he said, checking his Rolex with practiced nonchalance, I'm actually here for a pretty significant meeting. Executive team. We're pitching a consulting package, $500,000. So, if you could just point me toward the conference room. Vanessa's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Of course. Follow me. And as she turned to lead him down the hallway, Ethan had no idea he was walking straight into the moment that would shatter every assumption he'd ever made about the woman he'd thrown away. They walked in silence that felt thick enough to choke on. Ethan couldn't help himself. Old habits. So, how long have you been here? From the beginning, Vanessa said simply. Good company to work for? Very good. Her answers were short, controlled, like she was rationing her words. It's a nice building, Ethan continued, trying to fill the uncomfortable quiet. Growing company. Good benefits, I imagine. You're lucky to have landed somewhere stable after, well, after everything. Vanessa didn't respond. The silence felt loud. They reached the conference room. Through the glass walls, Ethan could see 5 people already seated around a polished table, executives by the expensive suits and the air of authority. This was it.
His pitch. His payday.
They'll be ready for you in just a moment, Vanessa said, her voice professionally pleasant. Can I get you anything while you wait? Coffee? Water? Ethan almost laughed out loud. The irony was too perfect. 5 years ago, she'd sat on their apartment floor. He could still see it so clearly. Laptop open, financial projections spread around her like a desperate prayer, begging him to believe in her business idea. Ethan, please just look at the numbers. If we can create an algorithm that... Vanessa, stop embarrassing yourself. You don't know anything about running a company. And now here she was, offering him coffee in someone else's building. The universe had a sense of humor after all. I'm fine, he said, unable to keep the smug satisfaction from his voice. But hey, Vanessa, I have to say, it's actually good to see you landed on your feet. I know the divorce was difficult for you. Starting over, finding work. But you seem to be doing okay. Stable job, steady paycheck. That's good. That's realistic. Realistic, she repeated softly, like she was tasting the word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. Practical. Better than chasing pipe dreams that were never going to. The conference room door opened. A black woman in a sharp charcoal suit stepped out, tablet in hand. Mr. Caldwell? We're ready for you. Ethan straightened his tie, picked up his briefcase, turned back to Vanessa, with a smile that didn't quite hide his pity. Well, good seeing you. Maybe we can grab coffee sometime. Catch up properly. Maybe, Vanessa said. Her smile was small, knowing. He walked through that door feeling good, confident, like the universe had confirmed what he'd always known. He'd made the right choice letting her go. Behind him, Vanessa stood in the hallway, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. The woman who'd let him in, Maya, her assistant and best friend since college, stepped beside her. You okay? Maya whispered. Vanessa took a slow breath. Give him 5 minutes. Then bring me in. Maya's eyes widened.
Fun.
5 minutes, Vanessa repeated softly. Let him get comfortable. Because what Ethan didn't know, what he was about to discover in the most devastating way possible, was that this wasn't just Vanessa's workplace. She'd built it. And every single person in that conference room, they answered to her. Ethan was performing, and he was good at it. Which is why our strategic optimization framework can increase your operational efficiency by a minimum of 22%. We've implemented this model for companies twice your size, Fortune 500 clients, with consistently excellent results. He clicked to the next slide with practiced confidence. The executives nodded politely, taking notes, their expressions professionally neutral. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Ethan leaned forward, his smile knowing. Can't we do this in-house? And sure, maybe you could, if you want to spend the next 12 to 18 months reinventing the wheel. But if you want results now, measurable, immediate impact, that's what we deliver. The investment might seem significant, Ethan continued, warming to his close, but when you factor in the cost of delayed implementation, the opportunity cost of... The door opened. Everyone turned. Vanessa walked in. But she wasn't carrying coffee. Wasn't apologizing for interrupting. She walked to the head of the table, the seat directly across from Ethan that had been conspicuously empty, and sat down with the quiet authority of someone who belonged there. Sorry I'm late, she said smoothly, her voice filling the room with effortless command. Please, Mr. Caldwell, continue. Don't let me interrupt. Ethan blinked. His mouth opened.
Closed.
I'm sorry, but this is a closed meeting with the executive. It is. Maya stood near the door, tablet in hand, expression professionally blank. Mr. Caldwell, I apologize. I don't believe you've been formally introduced. She gestured to Vanessa. This is Vanessa Carter, founder and CEO of Carter Innovations. The room went completely silent. Founder? The word kept repeating in Ethan's brain like a skipping record, but it wouldn't connect to reality. His heart was pounding in his ears. His hands felt suddenly cold and clammy against the presentation clicker. Vanessa leaned back in her chair at the head of her table, in her company, and smiled.
It was a small smile.
Patient. The smile of someone who'd been waiting 5 years for this exact moment. Please, she said, her voice warm honey over steel. Don't stop on my account. You were explaining something about companies twice our size. Ethan's throat was dry. The carefully memorized pitch had evaporated from his brain like water on hot concrete. Every person in that room could feel the shift in air pressure. The executives, her executives, were watching him with expressions that ranged from barely concealed amusement to second-hand embarrassment. I didn't realize. His voice came out strangled. That I worked here? Vanessa finished gently, tilting her head. Oh, Ethan. I don't just work here. She gestured to the room, the building, the empire humming around them. I built this. From nothing. From a laptop and a dream you called unrealistic. One of the executives, an older black man with silver at his temples, coughed into his fist, clearly trying not to smile. Another woman looked down at her notepad, her lips pressed together. Ethan tried desperately to recover, his brain scrambling. Vanessa.
Wow.
This is congratulations. I had no idea you'd managed to. Succeed, she offered pleasantly. Build a multi-million-dollar company? Become one of Houston's top tech CEOs?
Yes.
Despite every single thing you said, I did. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Vanessa picked up his proposal packet from the table, flipping through it with the casual attention of someone reviewing a menu. Now, let's discuss your pitch. You're proposing a $500,000 consulting package to optimize our operational efficiency by 22%, correct? That's yes. Based on industry standards and... Interesting. She looked up, her brown eyes meeting his with laser focus. Because according to our internal metrics, data you clearly didn't have access to before walking in here, we've already optimized our operations by 31% over the past 18 months. In-house, without external consultants. And this framework you're proposing? Vanessa continued, her voice still pleasant, still professional, still absolutely devastating. It's nearly identical to a model we beta tested and rejected 2 years ago. We found it doesn't scale effectively for AI-integrated logistics platforms. She closed the folder with a soft sound that felt loud as a gunshot. So my question is this, Mr. Caldwell. Did you actually research our company before coming here? Or did you just assume we were amateurs who needed someone to hold our hand? Ethan felt sweat forming at his collar. His expensive shirt suddenly felt too tight. Our research team conducted a thorough analysis. Obviously, if we'd had access to your proprietary data, you would have tailored your approach accordingly. I understand. Vanessa's smile was kind. Her words were not. That's what competent consultants do. Unfortunately, this proposal suggests you thought we were playing at business, that we didn't know what we were doing. She stood, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the Houston skyline spread below like a kingdom. The morning light caught her profile, made her glow. You know what the real problem is, Ethan? Vanessa said quietly, her back to him. The room held its breath. You walked into this building, into my building, and you assumed you were the smartest person here, that everyone else needed you to be successful. She turned, and her eyes found us across the room. You did the same thing in our marriage. No one moved. No one breathed. And just like then, Vanessa continued, her voice soft but ringing with truth, you didn't bother to actually see who was standing in front of you. You just made assumptions based on who you needed me to be to make yourself feel important. So here's what's going to happen. She walked toward the door, her decision made. We're going to pass on your proposal. Not because it's terrible, it's actually competent, if generic. But because I don't work with people who underestimate me. She paused at the door, her hand on the handle, looked back. My assistant will show you out, Mr. Caldwell. And please, give my regards to your research team. The silence she left behind was deafening. Ethan sat frozen, humiliated, in front of a room full of executives who just watched him get professionally dismantled by his ex-wife. The woman he'd told would never make it. The CEO. One of the executives cleared his throat.
Well,
I think we're done here. As Ethan gathered his materials with shaking hands, face burning, walking out of that conference room, past employees who'd definitely heard what happened, past the sleek lobby he'd walked through so confidently 30 minutes ago, one thought kept circling his brain like a vulture. How did I not know? How did I not see? But the more terrifying question was, what else had he been blind to? Ethan couldn't drive. Not yet. He sat in the dim parking garage underneath Carter Innovations, the concrete walls feeling like they were closing in, and tried to process what had just happened. His hands were still shaking. The air in the car felt thick and hard to breathe. He'd turned on the engine just for the air conditioning, but he was still sweating. His phone buzzed. His business partner. How'd the Carter pitch go? Ethan stared at the message until the screen went dark. How did he explain this? He'd walked into that building like he was doing them a favor, like they should be grateful for his attention, and walked out having been eviscerated in front of a room full of witnesses. By Vanessa. CEO Vanessa. He thought about their last real conversation, the one that ended everything. She'd been sitting at their kitchen table. God, he could still see her so clearly, like a photograph burned into his brain. Laptop open. Spreadsheets printed out. Eyes red from crying, but still trying, still hoping. Ethan, please. Just look at the projections. If we can create an algorithm that optimizes delivery routes in real time, we could save companies millions. The market research supports. Vanessa, stop. He'd been annoyed. Late for a golf meeting with clients. Just stop. But if you don't know anything about running a business. He'd said it so casually, like it was obvious. You're a project manager at a mid-tier consulting firm. This startup fantasy is exactly that, a fantasy. Her voice had been so small. Broken. You don't believe in me. He'd shrugged, already checking his phone. I believe in being realistic, Van. 9 out of 10 startups fail. You'd be throwing away a stable career for a pipe dream. I'm trying to protect you from yourself. Or maybe you're just scared I'll succeed without you. He'd laughed. Actually laughed. Succeed? Baby, you can't even afford your own apartment. You need me. And the sooner you accept that, the better. She'd filed for divorce 2 weeks later. And now, sitting in his luxury car in the parking garage of her multi-million-dollar company, Ethan Caldwell understood something that made his stomach turn. She hadn't needed him. She'd needed him gone. Vanessa closed her office door and leaned against it, eyes closed, trying to steady her breathing. Her hands were shaking. She'd kept it together in that conference room. Been professional. Controlled. Let her success speak louder than her anger. But God, it had cost her. Her chest felt tight. That old panic she thought she'd conquered years ago creeping back with familiar claws. She could still smell his cologne. The same woody scent from their wedding day, from lazy Sunday mornings, from the last time they'd kissed before everything shattered. And for just a second, she wasn't the CEO of Carter Innovations. She was 28 again, sitting on their apartment floor, begging the man she loved to believe in her, and being told she wasn't enough. The knock was soft.
Fum.
Maya's voice, gentle through the door. Can I come in? Vanessa straightened, wiped her eyes quickly. Yeah. Maya entered and immediately pulled her into a hug. And Vanessa, CEO, Forbes 30 under 40, woman who'd built an empire, let herself break just a little bit. I'm okay, she whispered. Liar, Maya said softly. They stood there for a moment, two friends who'd weathered everything together. Finally, Vanessa pulled back, laughing shakily. Did you see his face? Girl. Maya's eyes sparkled. The entire building saw his face. I think Janet from accounting is already writing fan fiction about you. Despite everything, Vanessa laughed, a real laugh that loosened the knot in her chest. I didn't think it would feel like this, she admitted. Like what? Empty. I thought I'd feel vindicated. Powerful. Like I'd finally gotten closure. Vanessa walked to her window, looking out at the city she'd conquered. Instead, I just feel sad. Like I proved a point to someone who doesn't even matter anymore. Maya was quiet for a moment. He mattered once. Yeah, Vanessa whispered. He did. You know what my mama told me when I left him? Vanessa said suddenly. She said, Baby, sometimes God removes people from your life because he's answering prayers you haven't even prayed yet. Your mama's a wise woman. She is. Vanessa smiled softly. She also said I should have taken him for everything in the divorce, but that's beside the point. They both laughed. Vanessa's phone buzzed on her desk. She glanced at the screen. Her mother. Saw the Forbes article, baby. So proud. But when are you coming home? I miss you. Vanessa's throat tightened. When was the last time she'd gone home? Sat on her mother's porch with sweet tea and just existed? Not as a CEO, not as a success story, just as her mother's daughter?
Fum.
Maya's voice pulled her back. You sure you're okay? No, Vanessa admitted. But I will be. And that, at least, was true. But what neither of them knew was that this wasn't over. Because wounded pride makes men do desperate things. And Ethan Caldwell's next move would force Vanessa to choose between the empire she'd built and the peace she desperately needed. 2 weeks later, Vanessa sat across from Richard Churn, a venture capitalist who could change everything. $15 million in Series B funding. International expansion into European markets. Everything she'd worked toward within reach. Your Q3 numbers are exceptional, Richard said, reviewing his tablet. But I have to ask, why international expansion now? You're already dominating domestically. Because market dominance is temporary. Innovation requires evolution. The European logistics sector is approximately 3 years behind where we are now. We can. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. Buzzed again. And again. Excuse me, she said, glancing down. 3 texts from Maya. Emergency. Ethan filed a formal complaint. BBB and Industry Association. Claims conflict of interest. Says you rejected his bid out of personal vendetta. It's already gaining traction online. Everything all right? Richard asked, concern flickering across his face. Vanessa looked up, her smile not quite reaching her eyes.
Yes.
Minor issue. Where were we? But her mind was racing, her stomach dropping. Ethan was retaliating. And if this got picked up by major business outlets during her funding round, it could tank the deal. Vanessa stood by her floor-to-ceiling windows, glass of red wine untouched in her hand, staring at the city that had become both her kingdom and her cage. It was past midnight. She should have been asleep. But sleep didn't come easy anymore. It hadn't for years. The penthouse was beautiful, minimalist, modern, expensive, but it echoed with emptiness. No one to share it with. No one to come home to. Just success and silence and the faint hum of the city below. She thought about calling someone. Her mother. Simone, her college best friend who'd moved to Atlanta. Anyone. But what would she say? I won, but I'm lonely. I proved everyone wrong. But some nights, I'm not sure what I proved it for.
Her phone rang.
Maya. You need to see this, Maya said without preamble. Vanessa pulled up the link Maya sent. A business blog. Mid-tier, but influential enough. Headline. Did personal bias cost a consultant his contract? Insider claims CEO's ex-husband gets frozen out. Her stomach turned to ice. It's not going viral yet, Maya said carefully. But if it gets picked up by Forbes or Business Insider. During our funding round, it'll kill the deal, Vanessa finished. Richard will pull out. No one wants to invest in a company with leadership drama. What do you want to do? Vanessa was quiet, her mind working through options. Legal response? Too slow, and it legitimizes the claim. Public statement? Makes her look defensive. Ignore it? Could spiral out of control. Set up a meeting, she said finally. With your lawyer? With Ethan. Van, I don't think. I'll handle this directly. Somewhere neutral. Tomorrow. Maya hesitated. Are you sure that's smart? Vanessa looked at her reflection in the dark window. No, she admitted quietly. But it's necessary. Because some battles can't be won through lawyers and PR teams. Some battles have to be faced head-on, even when facing them means sitting across from the person who once held your heart and decided it wasn't worth keeping. The coffee shop smelled like espresso and cinnamon, warm and familiar. Ethan arrived first, ordering black coffee he didn't want and sitting by the window where he could see the door. His leg bounced under the table. This meeting was Vanessa's idea, but showing up felt like walking into another ambush. The bell above the door chimed. Vanessa walked in. She wasn't in CEO armor today, no power suit, no boardroom edge. Just dark jeans, a cream sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked human, approachable, It disarmed him completely. She ordered chamomile tea. He remembered she always chose tea over coffee when she was stressed, and sat down across from him. For a long moment, neither spoke. "Thanks for coming," Vanessa said finally. "Didn't think I had much choice." "You always have a choice, Ethan. That's what I'm learning." The words sat between them, heavy with meaning. "About the complaint," Ethan started. "You filed it because I hurt your ego," Vanessa said quietly. Not accusing, just stating fact. "Not because you genuinely believe there was a conflict of interest. You rejected my proposal because of our history." "I rejected your proposal because it was lazy." Her voice was calm, measured. "You didn't research our company. You walked in with a generic pitch you've probably recycled a dozen times. The fact that we used to be married had nothing to do with my decision. But you didn't have to humiliate me in front of your entire staff." Vanessa's eyes met his. "You humiliated yourself, Ethan. I just refused to pretend I didn't notice." She leaned forward slightly. "Do you know how many times I've sat in rooms with investors who talked down to me? Who assumed I didn't understand my own business model? Who asked if I had a husband or boyfriend to help with the technical stuff?" "Vanessa." "Dozens of times." Her voice didn't rise, but the weight of her words pressed down like gravity. "And every single time, I had to smile and prove myself twice as hard just to be taken half as seriously. So when you walked into my company and assumed I was fetching coffee, when you patronized me in my own building, yeah, I let you feel what that's like. For just a moment." The coffee shop hummed around them, espresso machines hissing, quiet conversations, life continuing while theirs stood still. "I'm sorry," Ethan said finally, and he meant it.
For what I said that day.
For all of it. For the marriage. For not believing in you. Vanessa studied him, really looked at him. "Are you sorry because you mean it? Or because I succeeded when you said I wouldn't?" He wanted to say the first, but they both knew it was the second. The silence confirmed it. "Drop the complaint, Ethan," Vanessa said gently. "It won't go anywhere except making you look bitter. And you're better than that." "Am I?" His voice was small. "Because I'm not sure anymore." For the first time, something like compassion crossed Vanessa's face. "You could be," she said, "if you stopped measuring your worth by tearing down everyone else's." "Vanessa, wait." She paused, looking back. "Did we ever have a chance? Or was I always going to lose you?" Vanessa was quiet for a long moment, her hand resting on the back of the chair. "You didn't lose me, Ethan," she said softly. "You let me go. There's a difference. Losing someone is an accident, a tragedy, something that happens to you." She looked at him with eyes that held 5 years of growth and pain. "But you made a choice. You chose your ego over my dreams. Your comfort over my growth. You chose to believe I needed you more than you needed to believe in me." Her voice stayed gentle, but every word landed like truth. "So no, you didn't lose me. You traded me for the satisfaction of being right. And when I proved you wrong, you couldn't handle it." She headed for the door. "I'll drop the complaint," Ethan said quietly. Vanessa turned one last time. "Thank you." And then she walked out, the bell above the door chiming softly in her wake, leaving him with the question he should have asked 5 years ago: what would have happened if he'd just believed in her? And the answer he'd never get to know. But for Vanessa, walking away from that coffee shop and into the Houston afternoon, something had shifted. For the first time in 5 years, Ethan's opinion didn't matter anymore. And that freedom? That was worth more than any apology he could ever offer. 3 months later, the ballroom glittered like something out of a dream. Ethan attended the Houston Business Awards because his firm had been nominated for a minor industry award. Third-tier recognition.
Participation trophy.
He'd planned to make an appearance, shake some hands, and leave early. But then the host took the stage for the evening's main event. And now for our Entrepreneur of the Year award. Ethan's attention caught, looking up from his phone. This year's recipient has revolutionized the logistics industry with AI-driven solutions, scaled her company into international markets, and done it all while championing diversity and mentorship in tech. Ethan's stomach dropped. He already knew. Her company, Carter Innovations, has grown 340% in the past 2 years and is on track to become one of Houston's most valuable startups. Please welcome Vanessa Carter, CEO and founder of Carter Innovations. The room exploded with applause, a standing ovation that seemed to go on forever. Ethan watched from his table near the back, invisible in the crowd of hundreds. She looked breathtaking. Not just beautiful, though she was, but powerful in a way that transcended appearance. She looked like she'd finally stepped into who she was always meant to be. "Thank you," Vanessa said, her voice filling the ballroom with warmth. "This is overwhelming." She looked out at the sea of faces, industry leaders, competitors, journalists, admirers. 5 years ago, I was told my dream was unrealistic. I was told I didn't have what it takes, that I should be grateful for stability instead of reaching for more. The room leaned in, and for a while I believed it. I thought maybe they were right. Maybe I was asking for too much. Maybe I should accept less because that's what was safe. Her eyes swept the crowd. But then something happened. I lost everything. My marriage ended. I was broke. I was terrified. And in that moment of complete emptiness, I realized something. The people who tell you to dream smaller are often the ones afraid of what happens when you dream bigger than they can imagine. So to anyone watching this who's been told you're not enough, especially to Black women and women of color who are constantly told to shrink, to be grateful, to not take up space, let me tell you this. Her voice rang out with quiet power. You are enough. Your dreams are not too big. They're exactly the size they should be. And the people who can't see your vision? That's not your problem. That's theirs. The room erupted. People on their feet. Some wiping their eyes. Ethan sat motionless, something cracking open in his chest. Pride and regret, tangled so tightly he couldn't tell them apart. Their eyes met across the ballroom. Across 5 years. Across everything that had been and could never be again. She didn't smile, didn't acknowledge him beyond that brief moment of eye contact. Just looked at him long enough for him to see. She'd moved on. Then she looked away, and the moment was gone. Ethan left before the gala ended, walking out into the Houston night alone. And he understood, finally and completely, what he'd lost. Not just a wife, but a partner, a believer. Someone who could have built empires with him instead of despite him. He'd let her go, and she'd become everything she said she would, without him. And the most devastating part? She was happier now than she'd ever been with him. 6 months later, headlines flashed across screens. Carter Innovations expands to European markets in historic deal. Vanessa Carter launches $5 million mentorship fund for women in STEM. Forbes 30 Under 40. Vanessa Carter tops list for tech innovation. Vanessa stood at her window, coffee in hand, finally hot, finally enjoyed, watching the sunrise paint Houston in shades of gold and amber. Maya knocked and entered without waiting, carrying a tablet and 2 croissants.
Morning.
Thought you might actually eat breakfast for once. Vanessa laughed, accepting the pastry. You're the best. I know. Maya settled into the chair across from Vanessa's desk.
So,
Good news and interesting news. Which first? Good news. I need the win. Richard Chen's funding came through. $15 million finalized this morning. Vanessa closed her eyes, letting the relief wash over her. Thank God. And the interesting news. Maya hesitated. Ethan officially withdrew his complaint, issued a public statement saying it was a misunderstanding, wished you continued success, the whole thing. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Good, she said finally. I'm glad he moved on. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Vanessa turned from the window And she meant it. I really am. For the first time in 5 years, thinking about Ethan didn't hurt. Didn't make her angry. Didn't make her want to prove anything. It just was. A chapter that had closed. A lesson that had been learned. You know what I realized? Vanessa said, sitting down at her desk. I spent so much energy wanting him to see me, to regret losing me, to finally understand what he threw away. And his opinion doesn't define my success. It never did. I built this because I believed in it, because I knew I could. And that's enough. Maya's smile was proud. Damn right it is. That weekend, Vanessa drove home for the first time in months. Her mother's house smelled like lavender and cornbread, like childhood, like safety, like love that didn't have conditions attached. Look who finally remembered where she came from, her mother teased, pulling her into a hug that smelled like rose water and felt like coming home. They sat on the front porch with sweet tea, watching the neighborhood kids play in the street. I'm proud of you, baby, her mother said after a while. I know, Mama. But I worry about you too. Vanessa looked over. Why? Because success is good. But it's not everything. And I don't want you to wake up one day and realize you built an empire but forgot to build a life. The words settled in Vanessa's chest, gentle but true. You're right, she admitted quietly. I usually am. Her mother squeezed her hand. So, what are you going to do about it? Vanessa thought about her empty penthouse. The late nights she worked because there was nothing to go home to. The way she'd made her company her whole identity because it was safer than risking her heart again. I don't know yet, she said honestly. But I'm going to figure it out.
Good.
Her mother smiled. Because my baby deserves everything. Not just success. Everything. While Vanessa sat on her mother's porch, finally breathing for the first time in years, Ethan sat at his desk staring at a photo he kept in his drawer. Him and Vanessa on their wedding day. She was looking at him like he'd hung the moon. He'd taken that look for granted. His business partner knocked, ready for the Miller pitch. Ethan carefully placed the photo back in the drawer and closed it.
Yeah.
Let's go. But as he stood, he made himself a promise. He'd never underestimate anyone again. He'd never assume his success made him superior. And he'd never, ever take for granted someone who believed in him. Monday morning, Vanessa walked into her office and found Maya waiting with a peculiar expression. What? Vanessa asked, slightly suspicious. You got a handwritten note. Delivered this morning. Vanessa opened the cream envelope, recognizing the handwriting immediately. Vanessa, congratulations on everything you've built. You were right. I was wrong. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. I hope you find everything you're looking for. Vanessa read it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in her desk drawer. Not to treasure, not to hurt over, just to remember where she'd been and how far she'd come. You okay? Maya asked gently. Vanessa looked out at her city, her company, her life that she'd built from ashes and dreams. I'm better than okay, she said. And she meant it, because the truth was, she'd already found what she was looking for. Not in revenge, not in proving someone wrong, but in proving to herself that she was always enough. Even when someone she loved couldn't see it. The story wasn't over. But this chapter? This chapter was finally, peacefully, beautifully closed. So let me ask you something. What would you build if you stopped waiting for permission? If you stopped waiting for someone to believe in you and just believed in yourself? Vanessa's story isn't just about revenge or proving someone wrong. It's about what happens when you stop letting other people's limitations become your ceiling. And if that touches something in you, if you've ever had to build something beautiful from the broken pieces someone else left behind, then I want you here for the next chapter of the She Rose series. Because next week, I'm sharing the story of a single mother who lost everything to betrayal and built it back twice as strong. And trust me, you won't want to miss it. Hit that subscribe button. Not because I'm asking, but because these stories, they remind us of our own strength. And that's worth holding on to. Thank you for being here, for listening, for believing that comebacks are always possible. I'm honored to have you in this community. I'll see you next week.